It's to be invited to speak at the new campus of Georgetown Asia Pacific of Jakarta. Thank you, Wendy, for also co-inviting myself in this event. And I'd like to welcome all our participants. Are these all students of this program, or there are also non-students? Okay, so students, can you raise your hand? Students, okay. You all are real students, right? Yeah, real students.
Life students. Students in life.
Raise your hand again. All right. The non-student? How do you get in? If you're non-student. I mean, this is a gated campus. How do you get in? So, by invitation, I guess. Anyway, I'm privileged with the opportunity to talk about leadership in inclusive city. It is a package that is of interest to many. Two things: inclusive and leadership. Combining the two is not always simple. But allow me to share some of our experience, some of our aspirations, and perhaps some of our thought. And if I may say at the beginning, I stand here not simply as a former governor or former mayors, but as someone who deeply believes that cities are living texts, and that architects help us read and write them better. And citizens of cities are agents that make city a more living, a more livable, and it is not simply about buildings, but it's about people. It is called a dead city when there is no people in that city, right? Even when the buildings were still intact. But if nobody lives in that city, what is it called? It's a dead city. So what makes a city is the people, not the building, not the architecture. So I do hope that we share the same perspective on that. Now, with regard to leadership in inclusive city, let me Sebentar, saya mau pinjam ini dulu, Pak. Is it long enough? If I can put it on di situ. If it is long enough, then so I don't have.
Good idea.
I
like the innovation.
I can liberate my hand. I'm tied in. Test. Okay, same quality, right?
Yes.
A city like Jakarta, we have no less than 11 million people lives in this city. And we have no less than 200,000 plus minus of city employees. Raise your hand if you're employees of Jakarta government. Oh, banyak betul. Oke. Tepuk tangan dong berarti. Thank you for joining this class. And thank you for studying. Continue. Not many. Once you're in government, sometimes your appetite to continue your education is not always there. So when you have that appetite to continue your education, it's really highly appreciated. Now, I have a PowerPoint I will share, but I'm not going to talk based on this PowerPoint only. I'll share some of my thinking freely. I will share the slide with you through Ibu Wendy so that you can read the presentations and you can contemplate, you can discuss it, you can criticize it. So look at it as a materials to stimulate conversation. Now, but let me start with talking about leadership. I mentioned earlier that I've been given a job to manage a city of 11 million and a city government of no less than 200,000 people. Around 62,000 were civil servant, and the non-civil servant is the rest, so about 200,000. The question is, how do you manage 200,000 people, and how do you ensure these 200,000 people is managing the 11 million well? Okay, that is one question. Now, if I manage a group of 10 individuals, or even 20 individuals, I will give assignment to each individuals. A, this is your job. B, this is your job. E, this is your job. I'm giving everyone an assignment, and then I manage them. That's when I'm managing up to around 20 people. But if I manage 200 people, if I lead 2,000 people, I create an organizational structure. And then I create job description of each. And then I set up target of accomplishment for each. That's how I manage 200 or 2,000 people. But if I manage 200,000 people, an organizational structure is not enough. And assigning job to each individual is impossible. So how do you lead? We're talking about leadership here. How do you lead 200,000 people in a city of 11 million? Then use values. You have to be explicit on the values that you believe in. And the values that you believe in need to be bought by everyone who manages 2,000 people, everyone who manages 200 people, so that when they manage this unit, they manage using the values from the top leadership. So managing 200,000 people in a city of 11 million, you have to use values and be explicit on the values. So, inclusivity, in our term at that time, was not inclusivity, but keadilan sosial. Okay, that's the same principles. Social equality, fairness, that is the core values that the governor believes in, and that the governor wanted everyone to translate that into their work. So that we would like to see a city that is inclusive. Why, if I may share our experience, why social justice, keadilan sosial, or fairness become the core? This is from my personal endeavor. I run a project called Indonesia Mengajar, Indonesia Teaching Project. Recruited best university graduate, send them to remote villages and teach for a year. Dedi is one of the graduate of that program. He was a graduate of university in Surabaya. Then he was recruited. He was stationed in a Tanimbar Island north of Darwin. So one flight to take a flight to Ambon, one night by big boat to Somlaki. From Somlaki, a small boat, another night to get there, and then take motorcycles to get into his village. So you go back and forth to London, it's much faster than going to his village. So you can imagine the distance. Now, I've been working on that. And then, suddenly, to put the story short, I was assigned as a candidate for governor in Jakarta. And as a candidate of governor, I had to do campaigning. When you do campaigning, you go to kampung. You go to all these areas across Jakarta. And actually, when you do campaigning, you're doing campaigning more in the kampung than in the complex. Because in the complex, people were at work and in the daytime. Right? So you go to kampung. And when I went to all this kampung, it's like a cold shower. Oh my God, all these years we've been working on sending teachers to remote area, while only 3 kilometers from Monas, slum area with the entire kampung has no toilet. No homes with proper toilet. A complete set of poverty. It was a shocking experience. So we talk about inequality between Jakarta and remote area, and then I came here, inequality within Jakarta, and an extreme inequality. And it gives me a new perspective that indeed the world have changed. In the past, disparities between countries were so wide. Nowadays, disparities between countries has narrowed down. Indonesia is one of the top 20 economy in the world, right? So our disparity between Indonesia and other countries, or the top countries, has narrowed down. But disparities within countries are widening. And disparities within cities are widening. So the GDP of Jakarta and Singapore and Tokyo and London have narrowed down over past few decades. But the disparities within Jakarta has been widening over the past few decades. Is it not right? That's the case. So I was confronted with that reality. So we think we need to address this issue. How do we do that? That's what I said earlier. Stated clearly, this vision. So for our friends who are in Jakarta, I think you can check. There is pergub tentang nilai-nilai. I hope the pergub is still in use. Because when I entered the city of Jakarta, I talked to our team, and then I asked a simple questions. Do we have corporate values? Okay. As a unit, pemerintah daerah. And the answer is no, we didn't have corporate values. So what is the values of government in Jakarta? There is no values. We just follow undang-undang. We just follow peraturan daerah, but there is no values. So let's create that values. So the value is now there. And hopefully it's still being in operations. But anyway, come back to that. Once you have that, you start talking to everybody. Use these values, adil, use this value, keadilan, and translate this into every work. So if we use here the term okay, thank you. And translate that into each department. And I remember when we had this first conversations about this with the kepala dinas, which that's where governor is talking about kepala dinas. some of the kepala dinas, some of the head of the department was wondering, how do I translate equality, inclusivity into our department? When we talk about inclusivity in managing education, that is quite clear. When you're talking about inclusivity, when you manage healthcare, that's quite clear. Okay? But when you manage Bina Marga, and then you talk about inclusivity, how do we translate inclusivity and equality in Bina Marga? How do I translate this if you're managing Dinas Pertamanan dan Hutan Kota, Park and City Forest? How do I translate when these are field or departments that is often not associated with inclusivity or justice? So we work on this, and also public transportations or Department of Transportation, Dinas Perhubungan. What is inclusivity in this? So I told them we need to look at it from a different perspective. Let's say Department of Parks. Where are our parks were located? Does the resident of Jakarta across the region have equal access to park? Are the park only located in certain area and absent in other area? So translate that keadilan into ensuring that parks is available to all citizens of Jakarta everywhere they live. Everywhere they live. So it is being translated that way. And then we're talking about transportations. You look at the map. I think in 2017, only 42% area of Jakarta is covered by public transport. 42%. So what about the other 58%? They're not covered by public transport. So when we're talking about inclusivity, keadilan, let's ensure public transport is covering 90+% of area in Jakarta. That's inclusivity. You're not excluding anybody. And then we talk about Bina Marga, streets. But how do we translate keadilan questions? Now this questions has been repeated many times, but I remember when I raised these questions at first, it was quite unique response I get. What kind of transportation tools that everyone has? And then, this is true story, the response was motorcycle at that time in the meeting. And I said, no, not motorcycle, it's our feet. It's our feet. Now it's common questions. I mean, it's tapi at that time was new. Our feet. The question is, do we as government provide facility for pedestrian? Do we create enough? No, we're not. So let's do that. So once that is translated in every department, suddenly you realize that inclusivity starts from ourselves in the city. Not talking about the people of Jakarta, but talking about the government of Jakarta. It has to start from us. On health, for example, ketika kita mulai health coverage, BPJS, not only, but around 72% of the population in Jakarta was covered by BPJS. So around 28% was not covered. And who are these 28%? Is it the top class of our society? No, it's the lowest of the lowest, right? And immediately, we paid not less than 1.4 trillion rupiah just to ensure that everyone covered by BPJS, all citizens of Jakarta. Again, inclusivity, equality in the area of health services. So when you're talking about creating inclusive city and you link that to leadership, it has to start with values. Translate that by everybody. If you don't have that values, and you have to believe in the values. If you believe in the values, if you are leading and you believe in certain values in you, you create sensitivity. If you don't believe in certain values, you don't have the sensitivity. If you think about keadilan all the time, when you are seeing a phenomenon, then you will look at it from the lens of keadilan. But if you are not putting keadilan as your first priority, whatever you see, then you often overlook keadilan. To give you an analogy, if you care about electric car, okay, and you are being observant of brand of electric cars, when you drive on the street, whenever you see an electric car, the signal in your head turn on. Aha, mobil listrik lagi, mobil listrik lagi, mobil listrik lagi. This is my own experience. I didn't pay much attention to electric cars, and then our sons talk about electric cars. Abah, electric cars, this is the brand, that is the brand, and now we have so many brands of electric car. I think we should get an electric car. So they're trying to convince the father to get an electric cars. So I started to explore electric cars. I started to talk about electric cars. And then after I talk about electric cars, talk about it with our son, came to a showroom. After that, wherever I go on the street, my God, there's so many electric cars now. I didn't realize before. Why? Because electric car was never a variable in my mind. So if you are leading an organization, you better decide what are values in you and translate that into everything you do. It's not only one values. You set up a corporate culture, values. What is culture? Culture is habits. What's called culture is habit. So when you have a values, you educate the people about that values. So the stage is you educate the values, and then you create a habitation process. It becomes habits, and when a habit is being practiced by everyone, it becomes characters and culture, and you create a corporate culture. So, I believe all of you are leaders, and you may not have authority yet, but soon, once you get an authority, you can translate your leadership into policy. But if I may suggest, create that sense of ownership to a set of values, because that will be your guidance. Now, once you have that, you create a room for innovation. Allow your subordinates, allow your team to come up with new ideas based on these values. There is no way that at the leadership level you give instruction to every issues. And in fact, this is what I've been saying. If you are in the leadership managing 200,000 people with 11 million populations, don't do micromanagement. You do micro questions. Not micromanagement, but micro questions. And I think anybody that has in our meeting at the City Hall often realized I rarely give instructions. I give questions. Because questions create conversation and provide rooms for new ideas and provide legitimacy for coming up with ideas that may be different from their boss. If you start with questions and ask questions all the time, micro questions, not micromanagement. Why you don't do micromanagement? Because your subordinate will never challenge you. Jadi atasan itu nggak pernah ditentang bawahan. melucu tidak lucu pun semua tertawa. Ya. When you're telling unfunny stories, but you present it as a funny story, everybody will laugh. Why? Because you're the boss. So if you create room for conversation, you will definitely have your surveys come up with all this creativity. And that's what we experience in Jakarta. So if you have seen so many innovations, the innovation often do not come from the top leadership. The innovation comes from those who are given opportunity to innovate. Why? Because they're working based on a certain values. Now, I'll give you also another illustrations that I would like, when we talk about inclusive city, I'm very concerned about the fact that our city was segregated. In reality, was segregated. This area was the symbol of segregation years ago. Bundaran HI. How many malls in around Bundaran HI? Huh? What are they? Plaza Indonesia? Huh? Grand Indonesia? Huh? Tamrin City? Agora? Sarina agak jauh, di Bundaran HI aja. Itu ya, 4 itu. So 4 itu. There are 4 malls. Questions. Those who come to Plaza Indonesia, will they ever visit Tamrin City? No. Okay. Now, those who went to Tamrin City, do they have the courage to enter Plaza Indonesia? No. Maaf, saya nggak berani masuk situ. Right? Iya, tergantung tanggal, whatever that is, but it's discouraging, right? This is what happened when public space were not being provided by the public, but provided by the corporation. Because private entity, when they build a facility, they have to decide which market they are going to cater. And that is normal. It's nothing wrong with that. Because it is an investment, and they're talking about return of investment, and they decide what segment of the market that they're going to address. There's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong is that when the public institutions, like government, is not creating public space that allow sense of equality to everyone. So this is where we decide, let's look at our city. There are how many space is actually here? There are 3 space. 1 is home. That's our first space. And then work and school. That's our second space. Right? And then, for lack of a better term, I use it third space. What are third space? This is a space where we allow everyone in our city to enter, enjoy, and feel sense of equality. Where are they? Parks, public transport, sidewalks. That's where you enter a place and you don't feel intimidated. But if government is not providing the third space, it's the private sector that will be providing. And when private sector is providing, it will create unintended segregation. It's unintended, but it's segregating. And Bundaran HI is a perfect example of that. So, when we build public transport, I told our team, the value of public transport is inclusivity. keadilan. What does it mean? It means that in public transport, there is no business class, there is no VIP, there is no business lounge. Everyone is the same. It is only in our public transport that a CEO can stand next to an office boy. Nowhere else can you experience that. If you're in the office, there is no way they can stand one another, right? Sometimes even on the lift, when the CEO is inside, the lift open and you're an office boy, okay, next lift. I'm not going to be in the same with him, same car with him. And that's our experience, our observation. So you create public space so that everyone will experience it. And then you look at existing problems. Taman like Monas. I remember I came to Monas in the early of my tenure. Came to Monas, I saw a lot of kids playing in Monas. And a simple question, where are you coming from? Almost all of them coming from Kampung near Gambir, Kampung near Kuitang, Kampung near Tanah Abang. Those are where they are coming from. A very crowded kampung. And they come to Monas to play in the late afternoon, early evening. However, there is that sign in Monas. Dilarang menginjak rumput. Lah, how do you play if you're not allowed to step on the grass, right? It is an inclusivity issue. Again, if you put that as values that you believe in, you look at this and you immediately, this is about justice issue. For those who have large garden in their homes, you may not need a space like Monas to exercise and to play. But those who live in the condensed kampung, hot, humid kampung, you need that space. But we are treating our taman, this is unfortunate, in Bahasa Indonesia it's only used taman. In English you have two words, garden and park. Park is to play. Garden is to enjoy the view. And we treated all our taman as garden. Therefore, there is a sign, do not step on, dilarang menginjak rumput. So, cabut, biarkan itu menjadi tempat untuk bermain. Let them play. Nanti rumputnya rusak, ditanam lagi. That's the purpose, right? But again, we're talking about these values. And I'll give you another example of creating a sense of togetherness. This is Bundaran HI story as well. Saya pakai yang itu ya. Those who are sitting there, are you able to see this? Are you able to see this part? Okay. It's Bundaran HI, but not a perfect circle. But this is Bundaran HI. This is Tamrin. This is Jalan Sudirman. Now, I'll ask you to go back to this area a few years ago when we had Car Free Day. Okay? Car Free Day. Do you remember Car Free Day those days? What's unique about those Car Free Days? Uniknya nih. The circle here, Bundaran HI, full of pedagang kaki lima. Yes. Right? Yeah. This is an area where street vendors were basically occupying the street, right? So those who are doing exercise, they run, walk here, and then U-turn. They're avoiding this area. Remember those days, right? Same thing. From north, you're coming here, and then you make U-turn. Now, who is doing exercise? Running, walking, cycling. The middle and up class of our society. Right? Who are here? Low income. Right? So the low income, we're actually enjoying this UMKM. Cheap product in every means. In terms of price, in terms of quality, in terms of durability. Right? This is all here. It's so affordable. Ini tempat orang jalan-jalan. This is the area where you exercise. So, when I look at this, oh my God, even in public space, there is segregation. Oh my God, there's segregation. Should we let this continue? No, of course. That's what I mean. You create a values, you translate that into program, you look at reality, identify problems. These are problems. Why? Because they don't merge. Gak ketemu nih yang kaya sama yang miskin. That's exactly the pictures of Jakarta. So, what's the solutions? It's a simple rules. We created a simple rules. You are only allowed to sell in the pedestrian area, but not on the asphalt. Okay? So, yes, you can still sell your product, but not on the road. You have to sell it on the sidewalks. So everyone move to sidewalks. And there's a chaos here. Right? Because I used to control this very, basah area. Okay? Now you have to move. It's a simple rules. You can only sell in the sidewalks, but not on the road. What happened after that? It's people who exercise come all the way here and move. It's integrating our society every Sunday. Now they're interacting. They meet one another. And they can stop by for food. You can buy for drinks on the sidewalk. Now, it's no longer segregation of this is slum area membership. This is Kebayoran Baru membership. Now, you integrate that. So, again, this is just an illustrations how you translate leadership into inclusive city. But it requires maintenance. It requires consistency of policies so that it becomes values of our cities. Without that, it is only a value of a certain period. But if it is being implemented over time, bought by first civil servant to citizens, then you will be able to create a city that is truly inclusive. One of the things that I was quite happy to is another example of Bundaran HI, Jalan Sudirman, as well as Kemang, in which sidewalks were built, because it is democratization of the most expensive road in the country. Previously, only those who worked there or those who own a company who actually go through Jalan Sudirman. Now, everyone can enjoy the Jalan Sudirman as any major city across the globe. Anyway, I'm happy to continue the conversation in the question and answer session. Let me end my opening remarks here, and let's have more conversation.